insights, picks, results. This is Wizard Sports Picks. Beyond the Lines.
Okay, everybody, here we go. Welcome to Beyond the Lines, powered by WizardSportsPicks.com, your home to the sharpest opinions in the handicapping industry from the best collection of cappers across the board. I'm Dana Lane, and today we're talking baseball betting, and in my opinion, it's the most beatable market in all of sports. Baseball, to me, isn't like football. It's not like basketball. You don't win by betting teams. You win by understanding matchups. You win by pitching profiles and situational edges or situational edges that the public just doesn't see or doesn't have time to see on a daily basis. So over the next 10 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how I approach baseball betting, which I think is the right way. It's the way most professionals do it. And if you got a little time and you put a little effort into it, we're going to have a terrific 2026 Major League Baseball season. So let's get into it. Baseball, to me, it's the only major sport where outcome is driven by individual matchups, not team identity. And we know there are other sports, of course, where we talk about football. There's one-on-one matches in the trenches that you want to win. But really, baseball is that true one-on-one matchup more than it is in any other sport. Every game is a new equation, and that's what that's the first thing I try to tell people, because we do it in every sport. We know that we take what we just saw and kind of equate it to what we think we're going to see. But what I really want you to do is get out of that. I want you to focus on each individual game being a brand new equation. And why do we do it that way? Well, every game has a new starting pitcher. That's first and foremost. Every game has a new bullpen situation, and every new game has new lineup construction for the most part. Sometimes you have the same lineup from day to day, but there are teams that they change the lineups every single day. You could ask the Pittsburgh Pirates about that last year. Also, if you're changing parks, there's new park factors, there's new umpires, especially home plate umpires, which used to be a bigger factor than it is right now. We'll talk about that in a minute, but used to be umpire for sure was one of the biggest handicapping details that people overlooked. Not so much anymore. We might throw that out. But if you understand these variables, you can beat this sport long term. And believe me, as you guys know, this is a marathon. It starts at the end of March now, and then it goes through, obviously, the last pitch of the World Series in October. So let's break down each individual aspect that is important to winning. And look, guys, I've been doing this 33 years. So what I've tried to do is put the details in the equation that are necessary and take as much out as possible, because yes, I want to get the best information, but at the same time, I don't want to spend all day handicapping a Colorado Rockies St. Louis Cardinal game. So here's what I do. And I start with starting pitching, because most people start there. It's not my entire emphasis. In fact, there's much more of an emphasis on the next subject we'll talk about. But, of course, it's very important, especially for those first five bettors. So let's start with starting pitching. And what I want you to do is I want you to forget about ERA. ERA is a storytelling stat. And what I mean by that is it will always tell you, hey, this is where a pitcher came from. This is where he is right now. But it's not a number I can lean on and say this is where he's going, especially when we talk about bullpens. It is just a stat that I really like when I'm looking at starting pitching, but it's not the one I lean on. And here's the ones I do lean on. There are four numbers to me that matter. First of all, K rate, strikeouts per batter faced, is my number, is where I start with each starting pitching and starting pitcher. And why do I do that? Well, the better the K rate, the less outs a team is forced to be put into action per se. So if you have a guy that averages 7 strikeouts a game, that's almost 3 innings that your defense isn't asked to do anything. That's very important whether you're betting money lines or we're betting totals. I'll talk about all that in a minute. WHIP, WHIP. You might have seen that before. That is walks plus hits per inning. That's the second thing we look at. And the third thing is swing and miss rates, with number 4 being ground ball rates. Now, if you have a starting pitcher that is a high K rate plus a low whip, that's a lot of stability in that number. That's why I look at those numbers a lot more than I look at ERAs. Low K rate plus a high whip equals a lot of volatility. So, again, if you're betting money lines, we want stability. If you're betting totals, especially if you're betting that over, we want maybe some volatility. So those are the things that I look at when pertaining to starting pitching. And again, we're not betting teams per se. I want to kind of get you out of that. We're not betting teams. You're betting pitching profiles. Well, whether it's a starting pitcher or it's the bullpen. Now, speaking of bullpens, this is section number 2. Speaking of bullpens, this is where most bettors lose their money. They handicap the starter and they ignore the bullpen. In most cases, the bullpen will be asked, I want to say 50% of the game in most cases on an average. So why do we overlook this aspect, which is arguably the most important aspect of winning our wagers? They decide more games to me than the starters do, and that is certainly has been true in modern baseball. So what you need to do is when you're handicapping bullpens, you need to know 5 things. You need to know who threw yesterday. You need to know who threw the day before. You need to know who's available. You need to know who's overworked and who has the high leverage arm. Who is the manager going to lean on in high leverage situations? So 5 things there. Who threw yesterday, who threw the day before, who's available, who's overworked, and who's the high leverage arm. Doesn't mean, hey, look, we got the greatest closer in Major League Baseball. Doesn't mean that closer is going to come out in that game if they were asked to throw 2 innings the day before. So always know that. So those are the 5 things when we handicap bullpens that we want to look at on a day-to-day basis. A great bullpen can erase a bad start, and a bad bullpen can erase a great start. Just know that. If you're not tracking bullpen usage, you're not betting baseball the right way, or at least you're not getting the most out of your wagers. You're kind of just guessing if you just ignore bullpens. Now, let's go to lineups. So we looked at bullpens, we've looked at starting pitching, and now we're going to look at lineups. Not all offenses, as we know, are created equal. Some teams crush elite velocity. Some teams can't touch left-handed pitching. Some teams can't touch right-handed pitching. Some teams rely on home runs. Some manufacture. You know the deal. So here's the 4 things that I look at when it comes to lineups. How does a lineup perform against righties or lefties, depending on who they're facing that day? How do they perform against high velocity or low velocity arms? How do they perform on the road versus at home? And how do they perform in pitcher-friendly parks or in hitting-friendly parks? These are extremely important variables to put into your handicapping on a day-to-day basis. And really, all these bullet points, you just go down, check them. Hey, this team's got this team's got that. And at the end of the day, or at the end of your handicapping, you really want to find those edges. And of course, you want to find them within the parameters of what you're looking at money line wise. I mean, the Dodgers will probably check these boxes on most days, but we're not looking to lay $3 on a favorite. So somewhere into that minus $1.50 and better range, those are the games we're kind of looking at. And so that's a great way too, when we're looking at the schedule, just throw those games out or a minus $1.50 or more, unless you're looking at the total. But we are talking about money lines here. Again, matchups matter more than teams. That's where I want your headspace to be. So now we've looked at lineups, we've looked at bullpens, we looked at starting pitching. Let's look at the individual wagers and which one are the most effective. And clearly to me, money lines are the most important and most effective way to build bankroll. So let's talk about what to bet. This, again, money line is the most stable aspect of winning. It's driven by pitching and it's driven by matchups. That is where I would stay and where I do stay for most of the year. Now, there are some people that will tell you, well, I think totals give me the better edge. That is true, and I know a lot of people that believe that. I kind of believe that too. And then when I go to totals, I look for weather. I used to look for the umpire. I'm not going to do that anymore. And I also factor in bullpen. So notice I don't look at starting pitching at all when I look at totals. I look at weather, and we'll talk about the variance of weather a little bit in a second. But weather and bullpens, if you have a terrific bullpen, that is, to me, it's a much more effective way to look at an under, or a bullpen that's not so great when you're looking at overs. Again, you see the theme here. Yes, I care about starting pitching. Of course I care about starting pitching. But bullpens, to me, make or break a winning season, or provide or take away a winning season. Run lines, I hear what people are saying about them. Very high variance with them. Public loves to bet them. Professionals use them selectively. And so people love to bet teams like the Dodgers and the Yankees and Toronto and all the big market teams. But of course, we don't want to lay $3. We don't even want to lay $2. So what most people will do is lay the run line. It's you look at teams, how many games during the course of the season. I would say maybe it's, I don't know, 30%, that 25-30% that ends up being a one-run game. And that can work against you. So I kind of go away from the run line quite a bit. In fact, I used to have this thing where I went away from a run line if I was laying -1.5 and I was getting or I was getting 1.5 and plus money. That to me was always the kiss of death. If I was seeing a plus, I would run away. If I saw a minus, which means I was laying to 1.5, but being asked to give a little bit of juice, that was much more of a attractive option. But I run away from that. Again, we go back to money lines. We kind of stay there. So I stay with the money lines, but there are other things too to take into account. If you have the time, you will want to take these things into account. And it depends. It depends on what you're betting. If you're betting totals or you're going to bet money lines. But the four things that you should take into account when it comes to, say, traveling and scheduling. Is a team going east to west? You have to factor in the fatigue factor. Getaway days are massive. Sometimes getaway days, it goes both ways. Like if you're the home team, I mean, you want to get out of there knowing that you have a long trip ahead of you. Believe me, I've talked to a lot of guys where they've said, "Hey, look, yeah, we actually want to get out of town as quickly as possible, because if we can get out of town as quickly as possible, that means we can get to our hotel and get settled in quick, which means they're swinging those bats." So you want to take that. You want to take that into account. Also, long road trips, and this pertains to every sport. The longer the road trip, the more difficult it is to win. That is an absolute fact from various Major League Baseball players, and also bullpen burnout spots. So travel and scheduling is another aspect that you want to look at. You want to look at, again, east to west fatigue, getaway days, long road trips, bullpen burnout spots. The other factor that is always overlooked is weather and park factors. We want to look at wind direction, and you can find. Look, we got weather in the palm of our hand every single day. You can find that information out. Wind direction, humidity, temperature, park dimensions, all things that, if you have the time to look at, should also go into your handicapping. And we know Coors Field is, basically its own ecosystem. Wrigley, a lot of people like to bet overs when the wind is blowing out. I will say that the one caveat to that is, if you actually look at the numbers, that is not something that is an automatic W, betting the over in Wrigley, because factor in, or just know this, the number is already takes into account where the wind is. So if you're looking at a 13 at Wrigley, believe me, they're already taking into account that the wind is blowing out. So don't be so simple and just bet overs at Coors. Don't just be so simple and bet overs at Wrigley Field, because the numbers over the long period of time show that is not a profitable way to wager. Now, getting over to umpires. This is something that I used to look at quite a bit. In fact, it was a massive part of my handicapping. Strike zone to me changed everything. Strike zone, some umpires are over umpires, some are under umpires. Some umpires boost strikeouts. ABS system is coming in. This almost makes this a moot point at this level. I mean, really, I should take it out, because every strike zone is going to be the same. And that's that's just the way it's going to be. Unfortunately, that's a massive advantage that's not there. But I'm very excited to see this new system be put in place. In fact, I was up in the press box here in Vegas at the Aviators game, and I'm watching back when the ABS system was in play in the minor leagues, and I'm watching this whole system, how it works, and it is fantastic. And we saw it last year in spring training. I'm glad it's here, but unfortunately, it takes a major component of handicapping out of my system. So that's a lot of information. We talked about lineups. We talked about starting pitching, bullpen. The different caveats that you might want to put into your handicapping. But really, how do we build a baseball betting system using all that information? And we want to make it as simple as possible for you. So here's how we build. Here's something that you can use this entire season to build a handicapping system. And this is good for money lines, totals, first 5 innings, run lines, however you want to play. These are the meaningful components of what we just talked about. Pitcher K rate, whip, bullpen rest, opponent hitting profile, or hitting profiles in general for both teams, park factors. That should also park factors should be involved, but just a small emphasis on that. But those 5 things are that will get you started on a consistent basis in the morning to handicap these games. Also, do not chase. Do not put more money on games than you can afford to lose. I know you guys have heard that 150,000 times, but this is how professionals create long-term profit. And I'm going to use that word that I'm sure you guys have heard a million times: discipline. Discipline, discipline, discipline. Baseball starts at the end of March. It does not end in October. It is a grind. It is an emotional grind. It's a mental grind. Do not spend your entire bankroll in the month of April. I'll do a video on bankroll management coming up, specific to baseball. But again, go into the season. You can take all the components that I use, but if you want to make it even simpler, pitcher K rate, whip, bullpen rest. Bullpen rest is massive. Hitting profiles and park factor. And those are the 5 things that will really make your handicapping simple this year. Baseball is a beatable market, guys, because it is the most predictable. You can go into every matchup with a major edge from game to game, which is so much better than you have when you're betting point spreads, where the point spreads, their whole goal is to not give you an edge. But money line, every game, that does give you an edge in Major League Baseball. You win by understanding matchups, not teams. You win by understanding pitching, not narratives. And you win by staying discipline. Of course, you can join me this entire Major League Baseball season by purchasing an all-access pass located at wizardsportspicks.com. Just hit that link below and tell me about your betting method, your how do you go about betting baseball on a daily basis? Because, man, it is an absolute grind. And if you lose 3 or 4 games in a row, your mind starts playing tricks with you. This way, if you have a system in place and you have, this is what I'm going to stay with the entire way, that way it takes the entire emotion out of things, and all you have to do is stay disciplined and believe in your system. So I'm interested to hear what your betting methods are. Don't forget, win@wizardsports.com. Put in your email located on the homepage. Receive your first play from Wizard Sports Picks absolutely free without obligation. You can follow me on X at Dana Lane Sports. Yeah, I'm rebuilding that whole thing. Somehow I woke up one day and my 13,000 followers were gone. So we're going to build that up again. You could also follow Wizard Sports Picks on X at the Wizard's Edge. We're going to have another incredible Major League Baseball season. I encourage all of you to join me starting today for Beyond the Lines. I'm Dana Lane. Let's cash some tickets. Try that again. Let's cash some tickets.